All right, everybody. Today's lesson is on percents and fractions. So what we're going to start to get into here is we should realize that fractions, decimals, and percents all kind of go hand in hand. So if I know one form, like if I have the fraction that's 1/2, I should be able to change that to a decimal by taking numerator divided by denominator, making that 0.5, and then that decimal 0.5 can also become a percent, which is 50%. So today we're just kind of doing step one of this, which is percents and fractions, being able to change percents into fractions, fractions back to percents, and then maybe look at some things that we can do with percents. So first of all, a definition here of what a percent is. A percent is a comparison of a number to 100. So what that means is, as a fraction, let's just say p for percent, it means it's going to be a number being compared to 100. All right, that's what percent means, a comparison of a number to 100. So some number over 100, and then what we end up getting here is if you have a number over 100, it's just simply whatever that number is, we can change it into a percent. All right, so for example, if I have the fraction 95 over 100, okay, because 95 is being compared to 100, then I can change it into 95%. So our goal is, when we're given a number, is can we change it into something over 100? But once we get it into this form where it is over 100, then we'll have our percent. Okay, so that's goal number one today. All right, example one, I've got an A and a B doing a couple different things. In part A, we're going to be taking 29% and 45%, and we're going to write them as fractions in simplest form. And then part B, we're going the other way. We start with fractions that are in simplest form. We're going to change them back to percents. So for part A here, we're going to take those percents and change them into fractions. I'll go ahead and do the first one for us, 29%. Okay, well, here's what we know. As I said on the previous slide, a percent means a number out of 100. So if I have something that says 29%, because there's a percent sign on it, all I simply have to do is take that number, 29, and write it over 100. All right, we do want to reduce whenever possible. However, in this case, 29 over 100 cannot be reduced, so that already is in simplest form. I will let you guys go ahead and do now the 45%. So go ahead and pause the video, and you can do this next one. Okay, and we're back. So 45%, changing that. Percent means that number over 100, so we write 45 over 100. We do need to look to simplify. In this case, I know that I can divide both of these by 5. So by reducing this, 45 divided by 5 is 9, 100 divided by 5 is 20, and we get 9/20ths is our reduced fraction. Okay, part B. Now we're going the opposite way. If I have fractions and I want to change them into percents, okay, how do we do that? So again, I'll do the first one here. I'll do the 7/10. And remember, a percent means a number over 100. So what I want to do is be able to change this fraction, the 7/10, into an equivalent fraction that has something over 100. So I'm just going to simply change it. Now, just remember how we've done this in the past. How do I take 10 and make it into 100? Well, I can go times 10. 10 times 10 is 100. Well, if I multiply by 10 on the denominator, I just have to multiply by 10 on the numerator, and 7 times 10 gives me 70. And once I have that over 100, so 7/10, we write it as 70 over 100, and then because it's over 100, then it becomes its percent. Okay? You guys can go ahead now and try the 3/5. So go ahead and take that fraction and change it into a percent. Okay, so it should be done with that. So we're going to take 3/5. And again, what we want to do is change this into something over 100. So we look and say, well, how do I change it? Well, we go 5 times 20 gives me 100. So then I do 3 times 20, and that gives me 60. So we get 60 over 100, which is just 60% then. Okay. One thing you might have noticed before we go to the next slide, if I go ahead and do this one again here, I'll do this one in green. If I take the 3/5, you might have noticed something in here. When I said, okay, we want to change this to something over 100, well, what I did was go times 20 to get 100. But just watch here. Maybe you don't have to do that. We've got another way. All right? If you want to do this, look at what we have. All we really did was set up a proportion. And how do you solve proportions? If I'm trying to find what that missing number is, we could do 3 times 100, which is 300, divided by the 5, which again is going to give us the 60. So you could do this as proportions as well. However, whatever you have to do to change it into something over 100, we want to figure out what that number is that's going to be above 100. Okay? Okay, example 2. It says a radio station randomly selects one of 5 finalists for a trip to the Super Bowl. You are one of the finalists. What is the probability you win the trip to the Super Bowl? Write your answers as a percent. Okay, so it's a probability question. A lot of times when we write probability, they'll give you some notation that looks like this, where the big P stands for probability, and then in parentheses they're going to say what you're looking for. We're trying to find the probability that you win. Okay, so what it says here is that there are 5 finalists. Okay, there are 5 finalists and you are one of them. One of those 5 people are going to win. All right, we want to find the probability that you're going to win. Well, remember with probability, what you're trying to find here is the number of favorable outcomes. Number of favorable outcomes goes in the numerator. So favorable outcomes are, what do you want to happen? How many, in this problem, how many different ways can you win? Okay, over the total number of possible outcomes. That's how we write our probability. So it's just going to be a fraction, number of possible outcomes. So how many total different things can happen? So what we're going to try to find here is probability that you win. We're going to write a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and let you do that. Try to write a fraction. What's the probability that you win the trip to the Super Bowl? And then the last part here says write your answer as a percent. So once you get that fraction, then change it to a percent. So I'll let you guys finish from here. Okay, you're back. So again, number of possible outcomes. Well, there are 5 different finalists. Any one of the finalists can win. All right, if you're one of the finalists, you know, we're looking for the probability that you win. Well, you've got a 1 in 5 chance. Okay, so the probability is 1/5. Then what this question wants us to do is we want to change this to a percent. So that means I want to change it to something over 100. So I'm going to go times 20. And then up here we can go times 20 to get 20 over 100. So what's the probability that you're going to go as a percent? 20% possibility that you're going to win that trip. Okay, final problem for today. Example 3. It says a desert tortoise can go a year or more without drinking water. That seems like a long time to not drink water. But I suppose that's because it's in a desert. It has to adapt. It says when it does drink, its body weight can increase by 40%. Suppose the tortoise weighs 15 pounds after a long period of time without water. How many pounds can the tortoise gain when it drinks water? Okay, well, 2 things that we know here. This tortoise weighs 15 pounds, and then it's going to drink some water, and it says that it can gain up to 40% of that weight. Okay, and we want to know how many pounds can the tortoise gain when it drinks water. So, well, here's the thing. If this is how much it weighs, and it's going to gain 40% of what it already weighs, well, let's just think about that for a second. What if it was 50%? What if we said 50%? If it could gain 50% of its weight, well, 50% of 15 is exactly half. That would be 7.5 pounds. Okay, but it's not 50%. So it's not going to gain 7.5. It's going to gain a little bit less than that, only 40%. So we got to find 40% of 15 pounds. Okay? Now, one thing that we're going to do here, because our lesson, there's a couple different ways to do it, but because our lesson is on percents and fractions, is I'm going to want to go ahead and change this percent into a fraction. So the 40% can become 40 over 100. And then, I don't know if you guys remember, but a while ago we wrote down some key words for add, subtract, multiply, divide. And one of the key words that we learned was of. The key word of means multiply. So I'm going to take that percent, 40%, which becomes 40 over 100. We're going to multiply by the 15 pounds. But remember, 15 is a whole number, and we can write any whole number as a fraction by writing it over 1. Okay? Then, when we're multiplying fractions, remember we're going to go ahead and reduce. So I see that we can reduce the 15 and the 100 by dividing by 5, and we're going to get 3 over 20. Okay? And then let's go ahead and multiply. So 40 times 3 is 120, and that's going to be over 20. Okay? And then we do want to go ahead and reduce this. So if I reduce by 10, that means I can just get rid of the zeros. Okay? And then 12 divided by 2 here ends up being 6 over 1, which is just 6. So that means this tortoise can gain 6 pounds after it drinks water. That's a heck of a lot of weight to gain just by drinking water. Okay, that's our lesson for today.